All right, let's look at the worked out solutions for our sample quiz. So from section 1.6, we start off with our rational expressions and then multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting those. So first off, I want to go ahead and factor everything. So my numerator was factored for me, but my denominator is a difference of squares. So that's going to be x plus 7, x minus 7. And so you can cancel the x plus 7s, and so that leaves us with x plus 7 over x minus 7. Remember, you can't cancel these x's because you can't cancel things that are being added and subtracted. You can only cancel things that are being multiplied. All right, look at the next one. So the next one, same thing. I'm going to start off by factoring. So I'm going to factor my numerator. So x squared would have to be x times x. And then what multiplies to be -6 and adds to be -1 would be the -3 and +2. In my denominator, x squared would be x times x. And then what multiplies to be a +4 and adds to be a -4 would be -2 and -2. So remember, sum same. Our signs have to be the same, and they're the same as that middle term. All right, and then this, of course, was already in its simplest form. So I can cancel this x minus 2 with this one, and this x plus 2 with this one. So in my numerator, I have x minus 3 times 1 times 1. And then in my denominator, I have x minus 2 times 1 times 1. So that would be my final answer. All right, remember that when you're dividing fractions, dividing is multiplying by the reciprocal. So we're going to change this division sign to multiplication, and then we're going to flip this to get the reciprocal. So you're going to keep, change, flip. All right, so again, this is that same factoring we had just done a moment ago. And so you can see the x minus 2's will drop out and the x minus 3's will drop out. So in the numerator, I have 1 times x plus 2 times x minus 2. And in the denominator, 1 times x minus 2 times 1. So our final answer there is going to be the x plus 2, x minus 2. All right, then for 3 and 4, we're working on adding and subtracting. So first off, I have a common denominator for this first problem. So if I have a common denominator, I'm just going to bring that common denominator straight down. And so I can combine my numerators. So for my numerator, I've got x plus 1 and 2x minus 3. So I'm just combining like terms there. So 1x and 2x is where we're getting our 3x. And then +1 and -3 gives us our -2. And then that's all over our common denominator of x minus 5. So remember, you just bring that x minus 5 over. We don't change our denominator in any way. All right, if I don't have a common denominator, then I have to treat that differently. And so I need a common denominator for x minus 5, x plus 3. So that's just going to be x minus 5, x plus 3. So to get from this denominator to this denominator, I multiplied by x plus 3. So whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do the same thing to the top. So we're going to do 4 times that x plus 3. Same thing here. To get from this denominator of x plus 3 down to this denominator, we multiplied by the x minus 5. So again, whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So we're going to take the 3 we already had and multiply it by the x minus 5. So now that I have a common denominator, I can combine my two numerators. So just bring that common denominator straight over, don't change it. And in my numerator up here, I'm going to have 4 times x is 4x, and then 4 times 3 is 12. Here, don't forget you're subtracting, so it's going to change every sign that comes after it. So -3 times x is -3x, and then -3 times -5 is +15. So if we combine our like terms, 4x minus 3x is going to give us 1x, and then 12 and 15 is going to give us 27. And again, keep that denominator the same. All right, then for number 4, they ask us to find the x and the y-intercept for the equation and then graph it. So remember, to find the x-intercept, you're going to put 0 in for y. So if I put 0 in for y, that's going to be 5x plus 9 times 0 is equal to 45. 9 times 0 would drop out, so that would just leave me 5x equals 45. Divide both sides by 5 and we'll get x equals 9. So my x-intercept when y is equal to 0 would be 9, 0. All right, then it asks me to find my y-intercept. So my y-intercept is going to be where x equals 0. So let's put 0 in for this x right here. That'd be 5 times 0 plus 9y equals 45, like you see right here. So of course 5 times 0 is going to drop out, so that leaves us with 9y is equal to 45. Divide both sides by 9 and we'll get y equals 5. And so that intercept would be 0, 5. So they also asked us to graph the line. So we can come over here and we can take those two intercepts we just got, 0, 5 and 9, 0, and graph our line. If you wanted to plot a third point just to verify that you had it correct, you absolutely could do that as well. All right, then for number 5, it asks us what's the slope of a horizontal line. So the slope of every horizontal line is 0. Remember we talked about that's like the bunny slope, or 0 degrees of inclination. Then what's the slope of a vertical line? A vertical line has no slope or an undefined slope. Remember we said that's like a cliff. You can't ski that, right? Straight up and down. And then what's the equation of a horizontal line passing through 1, negative 5? Well, the equation of every horizontal line on the face of the earth is going to be y equals something. So all I have to do is look at this and see, okay, y equals negative 5, so that's going to be my equation. Then the equation of every vertical line on the face of the earth is going to be x equals something. So again, I can look at my ordered pair and I can see it's just going to be x is equal to 1. All right, then for number 6, it asks us to find the slope and the y-intercept and sketch the graph. So we've got y is equal to 3x minus 7. So this is our slope-intercept form right here. You can see that the m and the 3 line up, so our slope is going to be 3. You also can see that the negative 7 and the b line up, and so our y-intercept is going to be negative 7. So to graph that, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start at the negative 7. And since my slope is 3 over 1, from there, that means I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3, and run 1. Rise 1, 2, 3, run 1. And we could keep going in that way. If we wanted to, we could also rise a negative 3 and run a negative 1, because negative 3 over negative 1 is also a positive 3, and you can see that would have been another point on that same line. All right, then distance and midpoint. All right, so if we want to find the distance between 2 points, first off, I'm going to call this point number 1 and this point number 2, but you could have done the reverse order. So this is x for point 1, this is y for point 1, x for point 2, and y for point 2. Now, the most common mistake I see here is you want to say x1, x2 right here. So remember, this is point number 1. This is its x value. This is its y value. This is point number 2. This is its x value. This is its y value. All right, so we can go through then and we can say x2, which was right here, 4, minus x1, which we can see right here is 5. So we're going to have 4 minus 5 squared. And then y2 was negative 6 and y1 was negative 2. So negative 6 minus negative 2 is going to give us negative 6 plus 2. So negative 6, so 4 minus 5 gives us negative 1, and then negative 6 plus 2 gives us negative 4. So negative 1 squared would be 1, and negative 4 squared would be 16, because remember the sign does get squared with it. And so our distance would be the square root of 17. Now, if I got here and I got something that would simplify, then I obviously would give my radical in its simplest form. All right, then for number 8, we have the midpoint. So we're going to label these points the same way we did a second ago. This is point 1, so x for point 1, y for point 1. This is point 2, so x for point 2, y for point 2. And then my midpoint formula, I'm just adding my two x's and dividing by 2. So I'm adding my two x's, negative 8 and 4 divided by 2. And then I'm adding my two y's, so 3 and negative 5 divided by 2. So negative 8 and 4 is going to give me negative 4 over 2, or negative 2. And then 3 plus -5 would be -2 over 2, which would give me -1. So that would be my midpoint. All right, then for finding the slope given 2 points, so again, we're going to label those points the exact same way that we did for distance and midpoint. All right, and so for our slope, we can say we're going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so y2 was -4, y1 was +4. So we're going to have y2 minus y1. And then x2 was 2 minus x1 was -3. So that'll be 2 minus -3. So -4 minus 4 is -8, and 2 plus 3 is 5. So there's our slope. All right, then they ask us to find the equation of the line in standard form passing through the point 2, -5 with a slope of -2. So I'm going to use y equals mx plus b because I think most of you prefer that over y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And so remember that m stands for your slope. So they told us our slope was -2. So I'm going to put -2 in for m. And then they gave us this point where 2 is x and y is -5. So I'm going to put 2 in for x and -5 in for y. And then the only unknown is our y-intercept, so we can solve for it. So we've got -4, add 4 to both sides, we'll have -1 is equal to our y-intercept. So now if we want to write our equation in y equals mx plus b form, slope-intercept form, then we're going to say y equals, and again our slope was given, it was -2, and then we just solved to figure out that our b, our y-intercept, was -1. But if you'll notice, it told us to give our answer in standard form. So remember, in standard form, your x and y are on the left-hand side, your constants on the right-hand side, and you don't have any fractions. So I'm going to add my 2x to the other side, and so I'll have 2x plus y is equal to -1 in standard form. And then last, if a line has a slope of 2/3, and they asked me to find the parallel and perpendicular slopes, remember that parallel lines have the exact same slope. So if the first line has a slope of 2/3, then the parallel line would also have a slope of 2/3. All right, the perpendicular line is going to be the opposite reciprocal. So that means the sign's going to change and it's going to flip. So if this was a positive 2/3, then it's going to have to switch to a -3/2. All right, so those are all the things that you need to know for your quiz. You do need to know your formulas. So you'll notice there are several formulas in here. So like right here, we had our slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, and we had our standard form, ax plus by equals c, the x and y on the left and the number on the right with no fractions, right? Then right up here, we had our slope formula. Right up here, we had our midpoint formula. Right up here, we had our distance formula. All right, and then just some facts that we need to know, like the slope of horizontal and vertical lines, or the equations of horizontal and vertical lines. So be sure that you review over those things as well. All right, I know you're going to do a great job on your quiz. You only need to study this sample quiz.